wonderful to thank you to everybody here for joining us this morning. It's such a joy to be back in dialogue with the community that GreenBiz brings together. In particular, I have a special place in my heart for the circularity dialogues. My name is Dawn Danby. I've been working in originally as an industrial designer and kind of in sustainable design and around circularity and circular design systems for about 20 years under different guises and names. And I'm really psyched today to talk with these two remarkable characters. Kyle Wiens, is somebody that I've known for and gotten to work on projects with over the last 10 years or so. And he's, I don't think there's a talk I give where I don't invoke the work that iFixit is doing in terms of advocacy for repair. And I've learned so much from him about how repair is, certainly a design and engineering challenge, but much of the work that he does in advocacy also has a lot to do with addressing policy and legal considerations and a lot of things that enable circularity around products. And so we know that just given the nature of how circular systems need to be set up, repair is so core to that. And so he's going to update us a little bit about the kind of the state of the state there. Kip Bradford, who I'm very excited to meet and reconnect with, is an inventor who's based in Providence, Rhode Island, or just outside Providence, and has done a remarkable set of different projects. But today, he's going to really dive in a little bit, I think, with the work that he's doing with a company called Tro, which works on refrigeration and cooling. And so one theme that I want to just pull out and acknowledge right now is that, given the kind of combined, we're beaming in, a couple of us are beaming in here from coastal California, the combined dynamics of this moment, whereby we're thinking more about ventilation and cooling more than we ever have, as well as not just the ecological and climate impacts of those things, but also the human health considerations. We're here in the Bay Area, we're kind of like, we have to open all the windows to avoid transmission of viruses. We need to close all the windows in order to avoid inhaling all of the smoke. And it brings up a lot of highly complex questions just in terms of that infrastructure. But what does that mean when we're looking at the business systems around managing the products and the machinery and systems that enable that? So that's my very quick introduction. I'm really going to let these works speak for themselves, and we'll let each of them speak, and then we'll take some questions. So as you're listening, please, write your questions in on the side, and I will attempt to direct those to these guys. So Kyle, did you want to start and set us up?
Let's do it. Very excited to be joining all of you. This is going to be a lightning whirlwind tour. If you're not familiar with me or iFixit is a small organization with a big goal. Our goal is to teach everybody how to fix all the things that they own, and that is because we are hoping to build a future where we are more resource efficient. We're using our things longer, and we can. This is right part and parcel to a circular economy is having repair, having these inner loops of circularity be a focus. And I would like to make repair as badass in all respects as this mechanic is. Auto repair is hugely successful. I would say we have a circular economy when it comes to automobiles in many respects. We need that for all the other products in our lives. So iFixit is an online community that teaches each other how to fix things. If you're curious how to fix your dishwasher or your toaster or your iPhone, we've got you covered. And we have a lot of manufacturers that we work with because what we have found is that consumers are intensely interested in this. They want their products to last longer, and so we work with a lot of companies. With Motorola, we work with HP to help their products last longer. Here's the crisis that we're in. We used to fix things, we don't anymore. We're drowning in disposable stuff. We have to find a way to bring the repair economy back. It's time for a repair jobs revolution. And I would posit that repair jobs are green jobs, and that if we're going to build a green future, if we're going to build a circular economy, we have to focus on the repair piece of our circular economy. Okay, great. You're all here in this session. You're bought in. You believe it. Why do we need legislation? Why can't the economy figure it out? Or why isn't iFixit sufficient? The Federal Trade Commission last summer had a big workshop on this. They said, hey, we've been hearing about a lot of these complaints around repair restrictions. What are you seeing? This is a cool visual that they did during the workshop of some of the different testimony. I was there presenting, but they've been investigating the situation. What they've found is that overwhelmingly there are systematic obstacles that companies are putting in place that are consistent across industries, whether it's the electronics industry, medical repair, agriculture, farm equipment. Manufacturers are restricting access to the parts, tools, and information that consumers and independent repair shops need to be able to repair things. There are other more mundane things that get in the way. Those warranty voided for move stickers on everything. You open a game console and it'll say warranty void if you open this. Turns out that's completely bogus, but it has led to this culture where people are afraid to tinker. In addition to the federal workshop at the state level, a number of states are working on introducing right to repair legislation. These are states in 2020 that either have introduced bills or are thinking about it. The Democratic Party added agriculture right to repair to their party platform. The Republican Party this year decided they don't have a policy platform, so I don't know, maybe it would have made it in there. Here's kind of an overview of Republican versus Democrat in states, control of states that introduced right to repair. So this is a bipartisan issue. It's been introduced by parties on both sides. And it's not just the US. In Europe, the European Commission passed some kind of entry-level right to repair requirements for appliances last year, saying that appliance manufacturers of heating and cooling products have to make some basic parts available. And they have laid out in the European roadmap looking at doing repairability ratings. So France is going to be rolling out a repairability rating for products, where products at the retailer will have to tell consumers if a product is easy or hard to disassemble. Also in the medical space, just a couple weeks ago, Senator Wyden introduced a federal right to repair bill specifically for medical equipment. You're saying, wait a second, I thought this was just a consumer issue. Well, it turns out hospitals have repair technicians. Every hospital employs biomedical technicians who are fixing equipment. And manufacturers have been limiting their access to parts and information and diagnostic software using the exact same tactics that we've seen John Deere use to prevent farmers from repairing farm equipment, that we've seen Apple use in preventing people from being able to repair their own iPhones. It's kind of amazing how it's the same set of tactics. And so now you're seeing this be a federal issue and become implicated in the pandemic. This bill that he introduced would be a temporary bill that would go away once the pandemic is over, and even that is seeing intense opposition from the medical device manufacturers, which I think is a shame, because this is something we have to get manufacturers on board with. We have to build support inside companies. This can't be an opposition. We need to build an entire circular economy. We can't have opposition between the aftermarket and manufacturers. We have to find a way to cooperate and collaborate. So that is your very fast whirlwind introduction, and I'm gonna pass it back over to you guys.
Quick questions coming through, Kyle. One of them having to do with just the scope, I think, of right to repair legislation. I know that a lot of the time you've worked in the past on federal legislation as well as in the EU. I'm wondering, do we still have Kyle? Did we lose his video? I don't know. We might have lost him.
2 out of 5 here right now.
I know. Well, okay. We're gonna come back to some of the questions, and I'm gonna ask you some questions. Or not. We'll dive into you, if that's okay, Kip.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to just note, I really one of the things that I recommend folks do is check out, if you want to spend some more time with Kip, spend some time with him and Adam Savage talking about the refrigeration suit that he built. We can add that link to the chat line here. Kyle, we're going to switch over to Kip, and never mind, we lost him again anyway. So Kip, take it away, and then I'll start tracking some of the questions that come in for you as well.
So Kyle did a great job of bringing slides, and I have something fairly special to show the audience here, which is this. So this beast I have in my hand is, it actually is a prototype, but this is a refrigerator compressor. These are made somewhere around 100 to 150 million units per year, depending on who you ask, who you look at, what company you're talking to. This is critical components in everyday life. So I should focus, this is a domestic refrigerator compressor. There are refrigerator compressors in restaurants and grocery stores. And then we have air conditioning compressors in automobiles, I'll put that back down, in automobiles, in buildings, houses, in data centers. And if you think about the role that these technologies play in maintaining our lives right now, if you were to switch off every air conditioning refrigerator compressor in the world, the internet would stop, communication would stop, computation would stop, refrigeration that keeps our food safe would go away. Anyone in a hot climate would become uncomfortable. Those of you in California right now with your windows closed and your air conditioning on, if you have air conditioning, that becomes pretty unpleasant. So the impact of this technology in our lives is profound, and the role that it plays in the environment is also profound. So we know that refrigeration, air conditioning, the Project Drawdown identified as the #1 contributor to global warming in terms of the energy consumed and the refrigerants. But we don't talk a lot about the impact of the raw materials. The thing that I just held up is a couple kilograms of steel, iron, and copper. And what happens when it reaches the end of its life? Those hundreds of millions of compressors that are being manufactured every year sometimes get recycled and sometimes go to landfills. So I want to pull this back to what Kyle was talking about, right to repair. In a lot of cases, a compressor dies or a heat exchanger fails and the product gets thrown away instead of getting repaired. And some of that's because you can't easily go to your Target or Home Depot or online to find a compressor and the tools that you need to repair everything and get it working again. But if you look at the way these products are designed, modularity is possible. There just hasn't been any motivation to make products repairable and make products more modular and make the tools and the components available. And I think that I want to emphasize that fact and then kind of shift over to the discussion here. Senior vice president of one of the largest HVAC companies told me the only thing that drives innovation in this industry is regulation. So if we want change, if we want efficiency, if we want modularity, if we want repairability, there has to be legislation, there has to be a drive for regulatory environments that cause these changes to take place. So I'll leave it at that, and then we'll just jump into the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kip. Tons of questions coming in and a limited time to get into them, but I'm psyched to do that. I think one of the things that I wanted to also bring up that you mentioned just had to do, when we were discussing things, had to do with the scale of how many refrigeration units were anticipated to hit the market. And so the criticality of this particular sector. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, the IEA, the International Energy Agency, has done over the last 10, 20 years continuous assessments of the size of the air conditioning market specifically. And one of the first purchases that people make when they gain income is a refrigerator, and then the next purchase is air conditioning. Cell phones are in there somewhere as well. And the projections right now are looking at going from about 1.5 billion air conditioners in the world today. In the next 20 years, depending on what aggressiveness of market timelines you look at, we're talking about going from 1.5 billion to 5 billion. So somewhere between 3.5 and 4 billion new air conditioners on the market in people's houses in the next 20 years. And those numbers are a reflection of the fact that the planet's getting hotter and people are getting wealthier. And now with things like COVID forcing everyone to be inside, the numbers are accelerating. So it's pretty frightening when you think about the amount of steel and copper and these raw materials that are being extracted and not recycled, because there's no program to do that.
Thank you for speaking to that. Yeah, and just to bring together some of what you just talked about, because given the fact that so much of that industry is consolidated, and as you mentioned, there's the one thing that shifts it is legislation. Can we go back maybe to the question that we were going to ask Kyle, which is around kind of where that legislation can take place. And Kyle, you spoke to federal opportunities. And also, I know you've worked in the EU, and curious, there's a question here about whether there are also like local or regional policies that can be passed that would enable any kind of transformation in these kinds of industries.
Well, it kind of starts with procurement, right? If customers are asking for repairable products, then designers like Kip will be able to make them. And local government agencies have the ability to do that. For example, in the laptop world, HP, Dell, and Lenovo all basically meet all the right to repair requirements. They make service manuals available. They sell parts direct to their customers. So if you're in a city and you're saying, what kind of laptop should we buy for our staff? That helps. And then telling the procurement officer that was a decision factor for you helps. And across the board, I would say from a legislation perspective, at a local level, plastic bag bans started at local levels and then worked their way up. Is there a way we could do that with right to repair? I'd love to hear ideas. We certainly think that the 20 different states that are introducing right to repair bills, that's probably the most likely place for this to succeed is in one of those states. And by the way, it doesn't have to pass in every state. We really only need one. If one state says in order to sell in California, you have to make service manuals available publicly online, that helps.
So a related question that came in from Steve on the chat here was around what's in the way of legislation? And I could guess that, but maybe you could speak to it directly. Like what are the things he's asking? What are the things that are most important in gaining motivation and support for effective legislative change?
You want to take that one?
It's a big one.
Yeah, it's a big one. The HVAC, so my dirty secret is I'm actually a biomedical engineer that's gotten into HVAC through medical cooling applications, but I've realized the impact on biology and thermal comfort is pretty important, and want to fix the energy to comfort relationship. And so I come at this industry as an outsider, and what that's given me, and somebody just said that lobbying organizations must be engaged. So the thing that I have learned about this industry is the companies that are the heavyweights. You have United Technologies, which owns Carrier Corporation. You have Ingersoll Rand, which owns Trane and a bunch of other brands. You've got Daikin, Mitsubishi, Panasonic, LG. These are $100 billion global multinational corporations that carry tremendous weight and have lobbying arms, and they also sell these products at margins that would make a toy inventor squeamish. They squeeze margins at every step in the distribution and sales of these products. So not only is there no motivation to make these kinds of changes, it's a direct threat to the business model that these companies use right now. So that's one of the reasons why legislation has to happen, because it has to be across the board, uniform, and hit all the companies at once, or else these companies will fight tooth and nail. I mean, they fight tooth and nail to prevent these legislations that would cut into their bottom line. And I think it's, to think that there will be some altruistic company that says, we're going to recycle because it's the right thing to do. It actually kind of happened. There's a program called Nat Genius with Embraco, which is the largest refrigerator compressor manufacturer in the world, that was a project with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. But I don't know if that's really continued, and it's not institutionalized in law. And I think it really has to be institutionalized in law for it to be aligned well with the entire supply chain, not just a particular player in the supply chain.
Yeah, we have to have an interaction
Thank you.
inside these companies. So agents of change inside to work to build consensus and support. It was interesting during the judiciary hearings where they had Mark Zuckerberg and Tim Cook come and testify before Congress the other week. As part of that, the Judiciary Committee released emails that had been inside Apple where they were debating, where should we go on right to repair? Should we oppose it? Should we support it? And that was a debate happening at a very high level in Apple, which publicly has been the biggest opponent to right to repair. So if we can work inside companies to build a business case for why the pro-environment, pro-consumer policy of like just help your customers make your products last longer will actually be good for the brand, then I'm optimistic that will help shift the direction on the legislation.
Yeah, I think it's that's a really amazing kind of case study worth checking out. You guys wrote it up, and it has been covered on Boing Boing and other places about the fact that we think of these companies as being having a perspective, but actually you have oftentimes people within the companies working at cross purposes, people who are advocating for repairability, people who are actively not. You've got maybe the design and engineering team on one side and the legal team on another.
Right.
Making a broad generalization, and the battles are sometimes taking place in the public sphere, but oftentimes they're taking place
absolutely
backstage.
I mean, with Apple, for another example, the iPhone is at the top of our repairability rankings in terms of how it's designed specifically to be repaired. On the other hand, AirPods, which go with iPods, are designed to be disposable, and you throw them away after 18 months. They're not repairable in any way. So even within the design team at the same company, you have different competing outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a lot of really great, just to note, folks who are on the line, there's a lot of really terrific examples and suggestions that are coming in on the chat. I wanted to kind of to go back to a question that Daniela asked earlier around the need for collaboration between and among industry players and the OEMs. And is there a way, besides legislation, maybe we've spoken to it, but do you see other opportunities to push those collaborators to share their blueprint data that they see as proprietary, which has been the nature of all of your work, Kyle, I know, for years?
I mean, there's some interesting business opportunities. What if you made your CAD models available and licensed them, and so like people could print their own 3D replacement parts, and then you took a cut every time someone printed one? That would be a potentially innovative new business opportunity that would dramatically facilitate more repair options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always been the dream in some respects of the 3D printing use case is that it starts to kind of mature once we get into a realm of being able to actually replace component parts that would otherwise require injection molding or other forms of kind of complex manufacturing to do. So yeah, and Melissa just noted that sometimes 3D replacement parts are non-compliant. Do either of you want to speak to that?
Well, I think one of the details that is interesting to jump into is where, like with 3D printing parts, where the boundaries are for repair versus replacement and where the opportunities. Mm-hmm. And I think the interesting case with something like refrigeration or air conditioning is that you're not going to 3D print a compressor, number one. And today, for the most part, fairly specialized tools are required to handle refrigerants. The refrigerants actually have themselves a pretty substantial global warming impact. And I think it would be irresponsible for us to say that we want individuals to be able to crack open their refrigerators, let out the gases into the atmosphere that cause global warming, with 2,000 times the global warming potential of carbon dioxide, and then buy a new compressor and swap that in. And the HVAC industry has taken that to be a business opportunity to say, well, we're going to regulate that and have specialized technicians, and now we're going to set up this other economy of the technicians that will do these repairs. But for the technicians, it has to make sense financially, and to repair a $50 air conditioner or $50 dorm fridge, for example, that has a part that's $25 and the technician costs $150 an hour to come in and do that repair, doesn't make sense. So there are opportunities to think about how to to better use those ecosystems. Maybe it's not I come to your house and do this repair, but there's a shop that takes all the dead dorm fridges and recycles them back into service, that can handle the refrigerants. And we're also switching over to refrigerants that have a lower global warming impact. But I think we can look at those boundaries and say there are good opportunities for the consumers to do the repair. There are good opportunities to set up a repair ecosystem like exists in some other countries where there's like a wall of businesses that do refrigerator repair, and you just bring your product to them, and they do have those blueprints and they do have access to the tools. I think we can look at those opportunities and try to figure out business models that support those more effectively.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I am aware that our time has zoomed right by, just as anticipated. And so I'm glad we were able to touch on so many things. And there's always more questions that are coming up. Kyle, I know you are hosting a roundtable, 1 or 2 roundtables coming up as part of the session. Do you want to speak to that if people want to follow up?
At lunch, I think at 12:30, there were breakout roundtables, and I'll be running one of them. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, excellent. So you can find these guys at iFixit and at Tro and at Kip Bradford, Kip Kits. So some of those links are in the thread. They've both given amazing talks and videos, lots of things that you can check out to spend more time with them online. And thank you both so much for your time today, but also for the work, your life's work.
Yeah, thank you, Don. Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, and I'm excited to get a Tro, super repairable air conditioning system. So
I'm excited to make sure it's repairable for you. I'm making sure right now the circuit boards are modular and repairable.
Fantastic. I love
it. Okay, I'm going to sign off. Thank
you all.
Thanks, Don.